Let's get straight to some news that has just come in before the show began, rejecting a report which claimed that India's unemployment rate is at a 45-year high. The Indian government, in the form of Niti Ayog's vice chairman, has said that the veracity of the data is still not known.
I want to state it very categorically that this data, this report that is being cited is not yet finalized, is a draft report, and the data that is being cited is not yet been finalized or approved by the government. So therefore, using this data, I think, is not the right thing to do. And the reason for that is very simple. The reason for that is that this data is still being looked at because we have to publish a quarter-on-quarter report, because that is the right thing to do.
The clarification has been issued after the opposition parties of India attacked the government over a survey by the National Sample Survey Office, or the NSSO's periodic labour force survey. The report has led to the outbreak of a huge controversy just a day before the government is set to present the interim budget. The report has not been released officially despite being vetted by the National Statistical Commission in the month of December last year. Reports say that 2 non-independent members had quit the data collating body because of its not being released by the authorities. According to the report, the survey conducted between July 2017 and June 2018 showed that the unemployment rate is at 6.1%, which is the highest since the year 1972-73. The survey has become a political issue after the acting chairman and another member of the body that reviewed the jobs data resigned, saying that there was a delay in its release. Congress party president Rahul Gandhi took a jibe at the Narendra Modi government on Twitter, calling the revelation a national disaster. Niti Ayog has said that the government did not release the data and that it is still being processed. And in some more late evening breaking news that has just come in, India's Central Statistical Organization has given out a new set of revised growth estimates for India's GDP. Keep in mind, the earlier estimate pegged GDP growth at a disappointing 6.7%, but now, just a day before the budget presentation, comes this announcement. GDP growth for the current financial year 2017-18 has been hiked up to 7.2%. Which is above the 7% mark and sounds far better, keep in mind. But interestingly, the CSO, or the Central Statistical Organization, has also at the same time slashed down the growth rates for the primary sectors of the economy like agriculture, forestry, fishing and mining by nearly 2% to 5% from 6.8% in the previous estimate. The growth rate for the secondary sectors that include manufacturing, electricity, gas, water supplies and other utilities too has been brought down by a big margin to just 6% from the previous 7.8%, while the services sector, or the tertiary sector's growth, has been pegged lower again at 8.1% from the previous 8.4%. So India is bracing for a budget just a couple of months ahead of the big general elections. A budget before the election is invariably coloured by the politics around it. Governments do tend to resort to populist measures to appease the electorate. It's even considered par for the course. But in the year 2019, India is the fastest growing large economy in the world, according to many economists and experts. But it's an economy that is faced with many risks and uncertainties. Those same economists also warn that India needs to be more disciplined in terms of its fiscal deficit. Despite all the praise heaped around the world, the Indian economy is in need of a booster shot that can create jobs and increase the purchasing power of the near 1.5 billion population. There are opportunities aplenty to do that, and in that context, Budget 2019 gains huge significance, despite it being a so-called interim budget from the farmer to the middle class. from the industrialists to the startups. There are expectations across the board. Let's take a look at a few of them. The rural economy, to start with, needs a kickstart at this stage of India's growth story. And if India hopes to achieve 8% growth, then Budget 2019 will need schemes to boost the rural economy. So all eyes will be on that. At the same time, there'll be a close watch on what kind of allocations for schemes to address farmer distress are being announced. After all, it's a vote of bank that the present government absolutely needs to please if it wants to retain power. The anger of the middle class too has been certainly rising, and to assuage that, a higher income tax exemption limit is something that's keenly awaited, as always, apart from a rise in tax exemption limit for home loans this time around. Specific projects and plans with an outline of the kind of job creation that they will entail will be the primary focus, while an announcement on the universal basic income scheme front is also something that's expected. Corporate India, meanwhile, will be looking at the investment outlay for creating fresh infrastructure, be it new roads, railway lines, or any other projects, because that means big government business for them. In particular, real estate companies who are suffering some of their worst times will be hoping for some kind of relief in Budget 2019, while medium and small businesses will have their fingers crossed for any kind of reduction in GST rates.
Do expect that for 2018-19, the government will come very close to sticking to its 3.3% fiscal deficit, and we expect for next year there will be another effort to consolidate the deficit modestly. Now remember, the February budget is less important, because really what the government's asking for is Parliament to approve expenditures for the next 4 months. You have a full budget in July, and that's when all these assumptions will be revisited. But our sense is the government's still going to, try and reduce the deficit. The question is, if there is new spending on an agricultural package that is being spoken about, how will that be financed? Will that be financed out of existing welfare programs? Will that be financed out of new revenue measures? I think it's important that if there is new spending, the government lay out how that will be financed, so that we don't have any new unfunded liabilities going into the next government's tenure.
Government can announce all kinds of schemes in the speech. I mean, it can lay down how what it would do for the farmers or the poor, or say that they would introduce new schemes. So that really doesn't affect the second part of the budget, which is the actual hard numbers, which on the expenditure side and the tax side. So I expect definitely the government would have a bold framework in the speech, but my guess would be at this point that as far as the budget numbers are concerned, there would be more like token expenditures and tax adjustments. There would not be a massive increase, what could be called a populist in the usual sense of the word.
Arguing that India should gradually consolidate. So certainly we want India to persist on that path, see the deficits decline and also the debt levels to decline at almost 7% deficit. If you look at the general government, if we add the states, and almost 70% debt, these are relatively high levels for an emerging economy, and we want to have the space that when there's a negative shock, the fisc can help. And so I think we would want to see a continuation of that consolidation path, and especially also that consolidation needs to happen at the overall public sector. So one of the issues we have seen that the budget, the central budget has been declining, the budget deficit, but on the other hand we've also seen some extra budgetary activities picking up. So it's important to take a global view and to create this fiscal space that we need, to be ready if there's a negative shock.
Now, after the crackdown in India, Johnson & Johnson's baby powder is now set to be off the shelves in Sri Lanka. The island nation has now halted imports until the company proves its product is free from the cancer-causing asbestos. Two Sri Lankan government officials and the product's local distributor have confirmed this development to Reuters news agency. While the existing stockpiles of the products can still be sold. There will be no new imports of the talc until the fresh test results come from Johnson & Johnson India, because that's where Sri Lanka imports the product from. A popular healthcare product across Sri Lanka and in fact much of Asia. Reports of the baby powder containing asbestos broke on the 14th of December last year by Reuters, which reported that the US Drugs and Consumer Products Group knew that its baby powder had cancer-causing asbestos for decades, but did nothing about it. That led to a series of crackdowns by government authorities in many countries, including India. The report was based on thousands of pages of company memos, internal reports, and other confidential documents. Johnson & Johnson lashed out at the Reuters story, calling it, quote-unquote, one-sided, false, and inflammatory. A spokeswoman for Johnson & Johnson India declined to comment on the halt of shipments to Sri Lanka too, but said that the company is fully cooperating with the Indian government and are awaiting results from their testing. Meanwhile, it's a war of the tech titans. The Cold War between Apple and Facebook is now heating up. It all started after Facebook was discovered to be snooping on iPhone users in an unethical way. It was reported that Facebook bypassed Apple's App Store's approval process and promoted teenagers to unethically install a data collecting app to mine users' data. Facebook in return paid the teenagers and other users aged between 13 to 35 up to $20 a month for full access to their devices and their data. It allowed Facebook to track users' location, app usage, spending habits, and other activities. The program is a clear violation of their agreement with Apple, and this didn't go down too well with Apple, which responded aggressively and cut off Facebook's access to all testing tools that the social networking giant uses to ensure that its apps are ready for use on Apple devices. But the war between the tech behemoths doesn't end there. After Facebook, now Google is receiving flack for obtaining user details in an unethical way. According to a new media report, Google has been running ScreenWise Meter, which is a private app for monitoring the iPhone's usage. In the backdrop of the entire controversy, Google has removed the app from the iOS or the Apple's operating system and apologized for it even. According to Google, it was a mistake, but a spokesperson also insisted that they've been upfront with users who can opt out of the program at any time and that it is totally voluntary. While tech giants like Facebook and Google may have disabled their versions of spying apps, it leaves us wondering how safe is our data online all over again. Now, Facebook has had a terrible year, a year of scandals right from Cambridge Analytica to other privacy scandals. But it turns out that despite all the bad press, Facebook has had a terrific year when it comes to business. Facebook has done very well both in terms of the number of active users on the platform and in terms of revenue. First, let's take a look at the number of users, an indicator that seems to suggest that users are turning a blind eye to privacy concerns. There were more than 1.52 billion people using Facebook every day in December 2018, a 9% increase year on year. Monthly active users were also up 9% year on year with 2.32 billion as of 31st December 2018. This growth is across all geographic areas. Keep in mind, the user growth was particularly strong in India, Indonesia, and the Philippines. The last 2 quarters had seen the number of users shrink in Europe and plateau in North America. This quarter's growth is not the best that Facebook has had, but it does mark a return to the company's usual upward trend after signs that it might be beginning to falter. Now, let's take a look at the profits. Facebook's annual revenues are up 30%. Positive results for revenue and user growth sent Facebook's stock soaring, up 8% in after-hours trading on Wall Street. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg praised the company's work on protecting elections and weeding out clickbait content, signaling that he was shifting his attention back to expanding the company's products and reach. Zuckerberg said that the firm had fundamentally changed. Zuckerberg told analysts after the results were announced, and I quote, We have fundamentally changed how we run this company. We now have more than 30,000 people working on safety and security, up from 10,000 just a couple of years ago. I now believe we have built some of the most advanced systems in the world for dealing with these issues, unquote. In this call with analysts, both Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg, Facebook's COO or Chief Operating Officer, attempted to frame the company's extensive problems as quote-unquote social issues endemic to the internet as a whole and not particular to Facebook. Remember, last year was full of scandals for the company, such as the misuse of private data, rampant misinformation and foreign influence operations. Among its many troubles were the Cambridge Analytica scandal reports, a data breach where hackers stole logins of 50 million Facebook users, and accusations that Facebook helped spread hate speech in Myanmar. Now, you think healthy dishes can't be prepared fast, but you could be wrong. In a record attempt, 300 healthy dishes were prepared in under 5 minutes. Our correspondent Siddharth MP reports on the no oil, no boil record attempt in the southern Indian city of Chennai. Take a look.
Clad in whites, gloves on, apron on, chef hat on. Hundreds of chefs sort the ingredients and get them ready. They seem to be on a mission, but what's this all about?
No boil and no oil concept. They have prepared nearly 300 dishes, and preparing the dishes without oil was really a big challenge. We were thinking whether it will have taste or how 300 dishes could be prepared. But they came up with many dishes even like idlis, biryani and sandwiches, which utilize only the natural items.
It's an attempt to set a world record. 300 students preparing 300 unique dishes using fruits, vegetables and grains. What's more, none of them used oil or fire. All this done in under 5 minutes.
2 days we were trained for this. We were explained all the 300 dishes. Yesterday before there was an interactive session with the chef. He actually explained a few dishes which are difficult, but as hotel management students we had an idea of how to get it done.
It was an all-natural feast. Down to every detail, unprocessed ingredients were used.
We all used natural sugar like palm sugar or brown sugar, whatever sugar, the alternative for the healthy lifestyle. So that is the main concept. And even the grains, if you see, we didn't use the regular cereals and the grains. We all used very traditional grains like millet, jowar, bajra, all these other traditional cereals and pulses, so which is very healthy.
In a matter of minutes, the colourful dishes were ready, served and showcased on areca leaf plates, topped with plantain leaves.
In a world record attempt in Chennai, 300 students from hotel management institutes got together to prepare 300 unique dishes just using fruits and vegetables. What more, they did not use oil, neither did they use fire in this attempt to cook 300 dishes in under 5 minutes. With video journalist Karthik in Chennai, this is Siddharth, Wion, World is One.